Hi, my name is Trevor Sullivan. In this video, we're going to take a look at the single versus double quoted strings in PowerShell. So let's go ahead and just jump in here. I'm going to go ahead and create a new file, and then I'm going to save it as stringtest.ps1. So inside of this file, I'm going to create a couple of strings. The first string is going to be what's called a string literal. This just means that there are no special tokens that PowerShell will recognize inside of this string. So we're going to create a string called food is good. And then after that, we're going to create another double quoted string called $food is good. Now, do you see how the text in the second example has changed to green? That's basically because we have created a variable reference in this particular string, and the variable name is $food. Now, we have not defined a variable called $food in this session, so let's go ahead and do that now. So we'll say food equals orange. Okay, so let's go ahead and save this file, and then we'll hit F5 to actually invoke the script. So if you look down here at the debug console in Visual Studio Code, you'll see that we get food is good, and then orange is good. So this is a very simple example of what's called substitution in double-quoted strings, where we're basically substituting the value that's assigned to the variable food for the variable reference inside of that double-quoted string. So let's do the same thing using single-quoted strings. In a single-quoted string, we'll say food is good, and that's going to be another string literal, and then we'll say $food is good. Now, in our Visual Studio Code editor, you can see that in the single-quoted string, the $food variable is not highlighted in a special color. It's the same color as the other text that's inside of the string, right? It's that yellowish color. So basically what that means is that in a single-quoted string, we don't get variable substitution like we do in double-quoted strings. Now, this can be a good or bad thing depending on how you look at it. If you look at it as a good thing, you say, I want my strings to substitute variables for where they're referenced, right? And so in this particular case, you might want that to happen. But what if you were evaluating a stock and you were emitting a stock ticker in a string? So you have something like the stock snap is trading at $10 per share. Let's say 10. Okay, so now let's hit F5 and see what we get. So we get food is good and food is good, just like we did before, but then following that we get food is good and then $food is good. So you can see that the variable substitution is actually not working in the single quoted string. But look what happens when we do a double quoted string and we reference a variable inadvertently. So $snap is not actually a variable in this particular session, right? So what we've actually done is we've referenced a variable that does not exist. And so what PowerShell is doing is it's returning null. And as you can see in the output here, we have nothing to show for $snap. So basically what we want to do in that particular case is use a single quoted string. So we say the stock snap is trading at 10. And let's hit F8 there just to run that one line. And sure enough, we just get that string literal. So again, we don't get that variable substitution accidentally, which would have broken our message otherwise because we had a $sign in it. But what if you wanted to have a dynamic value inside of this string? So you say, well, I don't want $snap to resolve to a variable, but I do want the stock price itself to be variable, right? So let's say I'm getting that stock price from some external service. And so let's just create a variable called stock price. And this could be like an API call or something to a web service, but we're just going to hard code a static value for now and say $10. So the way that you would substitute that value in is using something called .NET string formatting. And we're not going to go into too much depth on .NET string formatting in this particular video, but basically what you do is you use the -f operator in PowerShell. And on the left-hand side of the -f operator, you want to put your template string. So it's basically your string, and if you have one or more placeholders inside of that string that you want to substitute values for, you'll actually declare those on the right-hand side of -f. Just like this. So what we're going to do is we have a single placeholder, so the indexes start at 0, and that's what this little curly brace, 0 curly brace is. And then we're going to, on the right-hand side of the -f operator, we're going to specify the inputs into that string. So if we hit F8 after selecting this code right here, you'll see that we define a variable called stock price, and then we run our template string through the .NET string formatter. So now we have this string called the stock snap is trading at $10. This is exactly the output that we wanted. So in my opinion, personally, I tend to prefer this single quoted string, the template string, and then using the -f operator to perform .NET string formatting to substitute values into that string. It just makes it a little bit more easy to understand and predictable for me personally, so that I don't accidentally have log messages like this one here on line 11, where I'm substituting a variable that doesn't actually exist. But again, as long as you understand the rules, it's up to you. So let's say that you wanted to use double quotes and you wanted this string here on line 11 to work. What you could actually do is you can escape the special $ character that PowerShell is using to interpret this as a variable dereference. So that special character is actually going to be the backtick up on the top left corner of your keyboard. So let's hit F8 to run this line now, and you can see that we get the expected output. So as long as you understand what's happening here, you can actually go into a double-quoted string and just use that backtick character to escape the $, which removes the special meaning that it has inside of a double-quoted string. So again, you do have the option. Now to finish up this video, there are a couple of other things that we can do with strings. So in addition to variable substitution, we can also substitute the value of a subexpression. So let's say that we wanted to get a list of the files in the current directory, or say in the root directory, and put those into a string for, logging purposes or something like that. So inside of a double-quoted string, we might have a log message like the files in the root directory are, and then we'll put the results, right? So what we would do to create a subexpression is to do a $ followed by a open and close parenthesis. Now anything that you put inside of these two parentheses will allow you to execute PowerShell code, return the result, and then that will get substituted into the string. So in this case, let's say we want to get the files from the root file system. So we'll say get child item path root, and then we need to actually wrap this inside parentheses. And then we'll grab the name property from the directories and file objects that we get from the root file system. And then we'll join the names together using a comma and a space. So we'll get a nice name, comma, space, name, comma, space, name. So let's go ahead and run this. And as you can see, we're actually getting proper syntax highlighting here for our command and everything else. So the editor actually does understand that this is a true subexpression. So if we hit F8, you'll get back the files in the root directory are applications, bin, cores, etc. Now that we've taken a look at how this string substitution works in double-quoted strings, let's finish up by looking at single-quoted strings. So we're going to do the exact same thing where we do the folders, files in the root directory are, and then we're going to use that placeholder again. So again, our placeholder index starts at 0. We're going to use the -f operator to invoke .NET string formatting, also known as string templating in some other languages. And now we're going to place our subexpression over on the right-hand side. So I'm actually just going to copy this subexpression right here, and I'm going to include the parentheses because we'll need those as well. So now you can see we're just going to substitute this in here. Sometimes your subexpressions on the right-hand side will get very complicated. And if that happens, all you need to do is just create a variable like file list, and then just specify the variable, and that string will get substituted into your template string on the left-hand side of the -f operator. So if we just go ahead and select these couple of lines here, hit F8, you'll see that we get the expected output just the same as the double-quoted string. So again, that's how .NET string formatting works. That's how single quote versus double quoted strings work. Just be aware that if you are using double quoted strings, always be thinking about variable references or subexpressions or anything that could be considered special. Now, one thing I do want to kind of finalize, one scenario where you do want to use double quotes in general is if you're creating a single quoted string. So if I wanted to surround a string in single quotes as part of the string, generally speaking, it's a good idea to use double quotes to surround the single quoted string. But you still have to be aware of variable references and subexpression references inside of that. So let's go ahead and backtick that to escape it, and there is our single quoted string. It actually emits the single quotes with it. Now, if you don't want to use double quoted strings, I personally prefer to do single quoted strings, but if you want to put a single quote inside of a single quoted string, all you have to do is double it up. So if I hit F8 on this line 25 here, the output is literally just going to be a single quote, because I have my outer double quotes, or I'm sorry, outer single quotes, and then inside of that single quoted string, I've created two single quotes. The first single quote escapes the second single quote. So 4 single quotes in this particular case will create a single quote. And if I want to end the string with a single quote as well, I just double it up again. And now if I hit F8, I have 2 single quotes together. So if I want to do something like Trevor's video is a huge hit, if I hit F8, I now have a string that's surrounded by single quotes, but it also has a single quote inside of it in the middle here. As you can see, every time that I want a single quote, I just have to double it up inside of a single quoted string. In a double quoted string, if you want to do the same thing where you're embedding a double quote inside of the double quoted string, you actually use the escape character, which is the backtick, right? So we're going to backtick escape a double quote, and if we hit F8, you'll see that we just get a single double quote inside of a double quoted string. And because we're using double quotes in this particular case, the single quote doesn't need anything special. So now I have a string that says Trevor's video is a huge hit, surrounded by double quotes, and I also have a single quote in the middle there. But you can see inside of the double quoted string, I'm using the backtick to escape every time that I want to emit a double quote as part of the string. So hopefully that summarizes everything for you guys. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you soon.